The phone rang while I was dusting the family photos on my bookshelf. I smiled seeing Claire's name on the caller ID. "Hello, sweetheart," I answered, wedging the phone between my ear and shoulder. "Mom." Claire's voice sounded oddly formal. "I'm calling about Mother's Day brunch." "Oh, yes," I replied cheerfully. "Would you like me to bring my apple pie? Or maybe that homemade bread the kids—" "Actually," Claire interrupted firmly, "we're doing something small this year. Just immediate family." Something in the way she said immediate family made my stomach sink. I knew my daughter too well not to recognize what was coming. "Belinda is hosting at the country club," she continued, referring to William's mother. "It'll be something elegant." I let the dust cloth drop to the table. "I see," I answered, struggling to keep my voice steady. "What time should I arrive?" The silence lasted too long. When Claire finally spoke, her words came out rushed. "Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching." "Actually, Mom, we're doing a small brunch this year, and you're not invited." It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My hand gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Belinda thinks it would be better this way," Claire continued mechanically. "The club has rules about guest numbers, and William's grandmother is coming from Chicago, so—" She left the sentence hanging as if that explained everything. "I understand," I repeated, though I understood nothing. How could I understand being excluded from Mother's Day by my own daughter? The daughter I'd raised alone, working 2 jobs after her father left us? "Emily asked about you," Claire added, mentioning my 12-year-old granddaughter. "I told her you were busy." Busy? On Mother's Day? What a convenient lie my daughter had invented to explain my absence. "Claire," I began, then stopped. What would I say? Beg for a place at the table? Remind her about the double shifts I worked at the factory to pay for her college? About how I saved for 3 years to buy that graduation dress she wanted so badly? No, I still had my pride. "That's fine," I finally said. "I hope you all have a nice day." "Thanks for understanding, Mom," she replied, relief evident in her voice. "I need to go now. Belinda's waiting so we can finalize the flower arrangements." Before I could respond, the line went dead. Claire had hung up. I stood in my living room, staring at the photos spread across the table. Images of Claire through the years, her first day of school, high school graduation, college commencement. In each one, I was by her side, proud, exhausted, but always present. I sat slowly in my armchair, still holding the phone. I didn't cry. Not immediately. Instead, I looked out the window at the small garden I tended behind my modest house. When had things changed so dramatically? When had my daughter become someone who could discard me so easily? It hadn't always been this way. Before William, before Belinda, Claire had been proud of her upbringing, proud of me. I remembered how she would bring friends home to our small apartment, bragging about my homemade cookies. How she'd written her college application essay about being raised by a single mother who taught her the value of hard work and perseverance. Now she lived in a gated community with William, drove a luxury SUV, and apparently had become too sophisticated for her working-class mother. The first tear fell as I gazed at a photo of us at her wedding 5 years ago. Claire looked radiant, and I looked out of place. That was the day I first met Belinda Harrington, with her pearls and precise diction. She'd looked me up and down, taking in my department store dress, and said, "How interesting that Claire turned out so well." The phone slipped from my hand as the reality hit me. I wasn't invited to Mother's Day because I was an embarrassment. My daughter was ashamed of me. I allowed myself 10 minutes to cry, 10 minutes to feel the hurt, the betrayal, the crushing disappointment. Then I wiped my eyes, stood up, and continued dusting. I was Evelyn Martinez. I had raised a daughter alone, worked 30 years at the textile factory, paid off my modest home, and never once asked anyone for handouts. If Claire couldn't see my worth, that was her loss. As the evening settled in, I made myself a cup of tea and tried to plan how I would spend tomorrow. Perhaps I'd visit the cemetery where my own mother rested. Maybe I'd accept the standing Sunday lunch invitation from my church friends. I wouldn't wait by the phone. I wouldn't beg for scraps of attention from my daughter or her highfalutin in-laws. Little did I know that before the sun set tomorrow, my phone would be filled with tearful voicemails from Claire, and everything would change once again. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned, replaying Claire's words in my mind. By morning, Exhaustion had settled into my bones, heavier than my 70 years had ever felt. I shuffled to the kitchen in my worn slippers, brewing coffee stronger than usual. My small kitchen had always been a source of pride. The checkered curtains I'd sewn myself, the collection of magnets from places I'd dreamed of visiting but never could afford. Sitting at my kitchen table, I cradled the warm mug between my hands. The house felt emptier than usual, the silence more pronounced. What had happened to my Claire, the little girl who once made me construction paper flowers when we couldn't afford real ones? The teenager who proudly introduced me to her college roommates as the strongest woman I know? When William Harrington entered her life during her final year of college, I'd been happy for her. Truly. He seemed kind enough, if a bit reserved. But Belinda, that was another story entirely. From our first meeting, she'd made it clear I wasn't the kind of mother-in-law she'd envisioned for her son. "You work at a factory?" she'd asked at their engagement dinner, her eyebrows arching so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. "How industrious." I'd smiled through clenched teeth. 30 years at Harrison Textiles. Put Claire through college on that salary. "Yes, community college is certainly an option," she'd replied, though Claire had graduated from State University. With honors? I shook the memory away and reached for my phone, scrolling through social media before I could stop myself. Claire rarely posted anything these days, but I still checked, hungry for glimpses of my granddaughter Emily's life. My scrolling froze on a photo posted 3 days ago. Claire and Belinda, matching in designer sundresses, getting manicures at some fancy spa. The caption read, "Pre-Mother's Day, pampering with the best mom ever. You're blessed, the best mom ever." The words cut deeper than Claire's phone call. I set the phone down, hands shaking. Was that how she saw Belinda now? Had my years of sacrifice been so easily forgotten? The phone rang, startling me. It was my sister, Maria. "Evie? You okay?" Her voice, warm and familiar, nearly broke me. "Claire uninvited me from Mother's Day," I said simply. Maria's sharp intake of breath was followed by a string of Spanish that would have made our mother reach for the soap. "That ungrateful girl, after everything you've done." "Apparently Belinda's hosting at the country club," I explained, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Very exclusive. Exclusive enough to exclude her own mother? Dios mío." Maria paused. "It's that woman's influence. Ever since Claire married into money, she's been different." I couldn't argue. The changes had been subtle at first. Claire, canceling our weekly lunches, making excuses about why Emily couldn't stay overnight at my house, gently suggesting I update my look. But after they moved into Belinda's neighborhood last year, the transformation accelerated. "Did you know," Maria continued, her voice lowering as if sharing state secrets, "that Belinda told the Hendersons at church that you never had time for Claire growing up, that she was practically raised by neighbors while you worked?" My coffee mug hit the table with a thud. "She said what?" Carmen Henderson told me. "Said Belinda made it sound like you were some neglectful mother who chose work over your child." Anger flared, hot and sudden. "I worked because I had to. Because her father left us with nothing." "I know, Hermana. We all know the truth." Maria's voice softened. "Will you come to our house tomorrow? Luis is grilling, and the grandkids would love to see you." I considered it briefly, then declined. "Thank you, but I think I'll have a quiet day." After hanging up, I moved to my small study where I kept old photo albums. I pulled out the worn leather book containing Claire's childhood. There we were at the beach, Claire building a sandcastle while I smiled tiredly after driving 3 hours for that day trip. The only vacation we could afford that year. Here was Claire at her high school graduation, her speech as valedictorian thanking me for showing me that circumstances don't define us, but determination does. I closed the album, a sudden realization washing over me. Claire wasn't just rejecting me from a brunch. She was rejecting her past, our past, the modest upbringing that now embarrassed her in her new life. My phone pinged with a message from an unfamiliar number. It was Emily, my granddaughter, texting from what must be a new phone. "Grandma, why aren't you coming tomorrow?" "Great-Grandma Harrington is coming and I don't even know her. I miss your hugs." Before I could respond, another text followed. "Don't tell Mom I texted you." She took my regular phone. I sat there, staring at the message, heartbreaking anew. What story had Claire told Emily? And why would she take her phone? Unless she was afraid Emily would contact me. Tomorrow would be the first Mother's Day in 45 years that I wouldn't spend with my daughter. The thought sat heavy in my chest, a physical ache I couldn't soothe. Outside my window, the neighborhood children played, their squeals of laughter a stark contrast to the silence in my home. I watched a young mother chase her toddler across the lawn, both of them laughing. "Enjoy every moment," I whispered to her, though she couldn't hear me. They forget so quickly. Mother's Day dawned with unexpected brightness. Golden sunlight streamed through my curtains, mocking the heaviness in my chest. For a moment, half asleep, I reached for my phone, expecting Claire's annual early morning text. "Happy Mother's Day to my first best friend." The screen remained dark. No messages, no calls. I got up slowly, my joints protesting more than usual. In the bathroom mirror, I noticed new lines around my eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. Grief could age you overnight, it seemed. The house was painfully quiet as I made my coffee. Usually by now I'd be preparing for Claire and Emily's arrival, setting out the good dishes, arranging fresh flowers. Instead, I sat alone at my kitchen table, stirring sugar into my cup with mechanical movements. The doorbell rang, startling me. For one wild moment, hope surged. Perhaps Claire had changed her mind, but it was Sandra from next door, holding a potted geranium. "Happy Mother's Day, Evelyn," she smiled warmly. "The garden club is having brunch at my place. Nothing fancy, just us old gals trading stories about our ungrateful children." She winked. "You should join us." I thanked her but declined. "I'm not feeling very social today." Sandra's eyes softened with understanding. "Maria called me," she admitted. "If you change your mind, we'll be there until 2. After she left, I placed the geranium on my windowsill, its cheerful red blooms a stark contrast to my mood. Sandra meant well, but the thought of sitting around discussing children and grandchildren felt unbearable today. Instead, I pulled out a box from my closet, Claire's high school memorabilia. Inside was the essay that had won her a scholarship, the one she'd written about growing up with a single mother. I hadn't read it in years. Now I unfolded the yellowed pages with trembling fingers. "My mother taught me that dignity doesn't come from what you own, but from how you live," Claire had written. She worked 60-hour weeks at the textile factory, yet never missed a school play. Her hands were rough from work, but gentle when braiding my hair. She showed me that real class isn't about designer labels or fancy addresses. It's about facing life's challenges with grace and determination. Tears blurred my vision. What had happened to that insightful young woman who once understood the difference between wealth and worth? My phone rang again. Maria checking in. "Louise says to come over. We'll pick you up," she insisted. "I'm fine, really," I assured her, though we both knew it was a lie. "That Belinda woman," Maria's voice hardened. "Do you know what she told Carmen at church last week? That it was unfortunate how you couldn't afford to give Claire ballet lessons or summer camps like the other children. As if you were somehow failing her." My free hand clenched into a fist. "I did everything I could for Claire. We all know that. Even Claire knows it. Or she used to." After hanging up, restlessness drove me outside. I couldn't bear the emptiness of the house anymore. I climbed into my 10-year-old sedan and drove aimlessly, eventually finding myself at Parkside Cemetery where my mother was buried. I hadn't planned to come here, but it felt right somehow. I sat on the bench near her modest headstone, watching. Other visitors place flowers on their mothers' graves. "I don't know what to do, Mama," I whispered. "I gave Claire everything I could. Was it not enough?" A gentle breeze rustled the trees overhead, but offered no answers. My phone buzzed. Emily again. "Brunch is boring. Great-Grandma Harrington keeps talking about her country club friends. Wish you were here." Before I could respond, another text followed. "Belinda just said you chose not to come because you aren't comfortable in formal settings. That's not true, is it, Grandma?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard. How could I explain this situation to a 12-year-old without disparaging her mother or grandmother? "Sometimes adults make complicated decisions," I typed carefully. "I love you very much." I sat at the cemetery longer than intended, finding strange comfort in this place of quiet dignity. When dark clouds began gathering overhead, I reluctantly headed home. The first drops of rain hit my windshield as I pulled into my driveway. By the time I reached my front door, the skies had opened. I fumbled with my keys, rain soaking through my cardigan. Inside, I was greeted by the steady drip of water. A leak had formed in the kitchen ceiling, right above the special dinner I'd prepared for myself earlier that morning in a desperate attempt at normalcy. The pot roast I'd made, my own small celebration, sat ruined under plaster and rainwater. Stared at the scene, water dripping from my hair, soaking into my shoes. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. My careful preparations destroyed, my small attempt at dignity undermined by forces beyond my control. Something shifted inside me then. A quiet determination replaced the ache of rejection. I'd spent decades putting Claire first, working overtime for her college fund, sacrificing my own dreams so she could pursue hers. I'd been proud to do it. But now, watching water destroy my solitary Mother's Day meal, I realized I needed to reclaim something for myself. I changed into dry clothes, cleaned up the mess, and made a simple sandwich instead. As evening approached, I sat in my favorite chair by the window watching the rain wash my garden clean. Tomorrow, I would call my insurance about the roof. I would sign up for that community college art class I'd been considering. I would stop checking Claire's social media. I was more than just a mother. I was Evelyn Martinez, and it was time I remembered that. The rain continued falling as darkness settled in, its rhythm oddly comforting now. I was just preparing for bed when my phone lit up, Claire calling hours after I'd expected to hear from her. I let it go to voicemail. 5 voicemails from Claire, each one increasingly desperate, her voice progressively breaking. I listened to them all in succession as I drank my morning coffee, my expression unchanging. Mom, please call me back. Something happened at brunch. I need to talk to you. Mom, I'm so sorry about what I said. Please pick up. Mom, Emily's upset with me. We all are. Please call me. Mom, I didn't know what Belinda was saying about you. I swear I didn't know. The final message came at midnight, Claire's voice barely recognizable through her tears. Mom, I made a terrible mistake. Please forgive me. I set the phone down and stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. The woman, looking back at me, seemed different somehow. Her shoulders straighter, her gaze clearer. One day of pain had somehow crystallized years of subtle slights into perfect clarity. The roof leak had been patched temporarily by Mr. Guzman from next door, but the water-stained ceiling was a reminder of yesterday's devastation. I'd need to dip into my savings for repairs. My phone rang again. Claire. I let it go to voicemail once more. Instead, I called Emily's new number. Grandma? Her voice held such genuine delight that tears sprang to my eyes. Are you mad at Mom? She's been crying all morning. I'm not mad, sweetheart, I said carefully. I'm disappointed. Can you tell me what happened at brunch yesterday? Emily's adolescent indignation flowed freely. It was awful. Great-Grandma Harrington kept talking about her charities and how people need to know their place. Then Belinda started saying these weird things about you, how you chose not to give Mom opportunities because you were too proud to accept help. Grip tightened on the phone. What else did she say? She told everyone you refused to come because you're uncomfortable in refined settings, whatever that means. That's when I got mad. I could picture my granddaughter perfectly. Claire's determined chin, my stubborn eyes. What did you do, Emily? I asked gently. I told everyone that was a lie. I said you make the best cookies and tell the best stories and know more about art than anyone. Then I showed them the Mother's Day card I made for you. My chest tightened. You made me a card? Of course. I always make you a card. There was confusion in her voice, as if the idea of not making me a card was incomprehensible. I asked Mom where the card I made for you was, and she got all weird and quiet. Then Belinda said you probably wouldn't appreciate a homemade card. Anyway, since it wasn't sophisticated enough. I closed my eyes, picturing the scene. That's when Mom got really upset, Emily continued. She asked Belinda what she meant, and Belinda said something about your limited cultural exposure being why Mom had to overcome so much. Mom looked really confused. Then Dad asked Belinda what she was talking about. That's when everything exploded. Before Emily could continue, I heard Claire's voice in the background. Emily? Who are you talking to? The call ended abruptly. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. It was William, Claire's husband. We'd never been close. He was unfailingly polite but distant, clearly influenced by his mother's assessment of me. Evelyn, he began formally, I owe you an apology. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined, this wasn't one of them. I've been misinformed about certain things, he continued, choosing his words carefully. My mother has apparently been filtering communication between you and Claire's family. I was unaware. What do you mean, filtering communication? I asked, though I was beginning to understand all too well. William sighed heavily. The cards you sent Emily for her birthday never arrived. The voicemails you left about visiting were never passed along. The Christmas gifts you mailed. He trailed off. Mother had the staff intercept them. The staff? I repeated incredulously. The housekeeper, the personal assistant, Mother has a way of ensuring loyalty. I sat down slowly, processing his words. And Claire didn't know? Claire was told you had become distant, that you rarely called or sent gifts. Mother suggested it was because you felt uncomfortable with our lifestyle. A bitter laugh escaped me. And Claire believed that, after everything I've done for her? William was silent for a moment. Claire wanted to believe the best of everyone. She couldn't imagine her mother or mother-in-law would deliberately mislead her. I thought of my daughter, always seeing the good in people, always giving second chances. It was both her greatest strength and her greatest vulnerability. Yesterday at brunch, William continued, Emily showed us the Mother's Day card she made. For you. Claire asked where it was, and Mother said something about having her assistant mail it. Then she made that comment about you not appreciating homemade gestures because of your. He hesitated. My working-class background? I supplied. Something like that, he admitted. Claire asked what she meant, and Mother began talking about how you'd held Claire back from opportunities like debutante balls and finishing school. Couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. Finishing school? What century does your mother think we live in? She's from a different era, William said, though his defense sounded hollow. The point is, Claire finally realized something wasn't right. She began questioning Mother about other things, the birthday cards, the Christmas gifts. When Mother couldn't provide satisfactory answers, Claire became quite upset. Where is Claire now? I asked. She's been trying to call you, he replied. She's quite distraught. She feels she's betrayed you. She has, I said simply. The pain was still too fresh for gentle platitudes. Yes, William agreed. Surprising me. She has. We both have. I didn't see what was happening right in front of me, and I should have. I'm sorry, Evelyn. His apology felt genuine, but it didn't erase the hurt or the lingering questions. Why? Are you calling instead of Claire? I asked. She's afraid you won't pick up if you see her number again, he admitted. She asked me to see if you would speak with her. I looked out my kitchen window at the garden I'd tended for decades, the same garden where Claire had once picked dandelions to make me fancy salads when we couldn't afford fresh vegetables. Tell her I'll call her tomorrow, I said finally. I need one more day. After hanging up, I sat for a long time in silence. My phone buzzed with a text, a photo from Emily of the card she'd made me, a beautiful watercolor of the two of us in my garden. Something shifted inside me. The hurt remained, but now it was tempered with resolve. I hadn't raised my daughter to be cruel, but I also hadn't raised her to be weak. Somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten who she was, who we were. Tomorrow, I would remind her. I spent that day putting my house in order, both literally and figuratively. The water-damaged ceiling needed attention, and I called a contractor for estimates. I also scheduled that art class I'd been postponing for years, cleaned out my closet, and made a donation pile of things I no longer needed. Each task felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I wasn't just Claire's mother. I was Evelyn Martinez, artist, gardener, survivor. When evening came, I finally sat down to listen again to Claire's voicemails from the day before. Her first message had arrived at 3:42 p.m., much earlier than I'd initially realized. Mom, her voice trembled. I need to talk to you. Something happened at brunch. Please call me back. The second voicemail came just 12 minutes later, Claire's words tumbling out faster. Mom, Emily showed everyone the card she made you. Belinda said she mailed it days ago, but that's impossible because Emily just made it yesterday. When I asked her what was going on, she said the oddest thing about you not appreciating handmade gifts because of your background. What did she mean by that? Please call me. 30 minutes later, the third message. Mom, I found a box in Belinda's study with birthday cards from you to Emily. Cards I never saw. There are Christmas presents, too, still wrapped. Mom, what's going on? Why would she keep these things from us? The fourth voicemail, timestamp 5:18 p.m., was where Claire's voice first broke. Mom, Belinda's been lying to me. She told me you never called on Emily's birthday, but I found a note in her planner about you calling 3 times. She told me you forgot our anniversary, but there's a package here with your handwriting dated exactly right. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have known better. Please call me. The final message came at midnight. Claire's voice nearly unrecognizable, through her tears. Mom, I've made a terrible mistake. William and I had a huge fight with Belinda. She's been intercepting your calls and gifts for years. She's been telling everyone your mom the things she said about you. I believed her. How could I believe her over you? Please forgive me. I'm coming over tomorrow whether you answer or not. I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry. I set the phone down, my hands trembling slightly. Claire's devastation was clear, but so was the magnitude of her betrayal. How could my own daughter have believed such things about me? How had she not seen through Belinda's manipulations? I was still sitting there when my phone rang again. It was Emily. Grandma, she whispered. Mom's really upset. She found all these presents from you that we never got. Belinda hid them. I know, sweetheart, I said gently. Your mom told me in her messages. She cried all night, Emily continued. Dad and Belinda had a huge fight. Dad told her to leave our house and never come back. My eyebrows shot up in surprise. William standing up to his mother? That was unexpected. Great-Grandma Harrington left too, Emily added. She said Dad was being unnecessarily dramatic, but he said she was just as bad for never saying anything about what Belinda was doing. I could hear the confusion in my granddaughter's voice. Her world was being upended, loyalties shifting, trusted adults suddenly at war with each other. Are you coming over, Grandma? She asked hopefully. Mom says she wants to see you, but she's afraid you hate her now. I could never hate your mother, Emily, I said truthfully. I'm disappointed and hurt, but I don't hate her. She's writing. You a letter? Emily whispered. She's been writing all morning. She keeps crumpling up paper and starting over. After we hung up, I went to my garden. Tending to my flowers had always helped clear my mind, and I needed clarity now more than ever. As I knelt in the dirt, gently pruning my roses, the full picture began to form. For years, Belinda had been systematically undermining me, not just to Claire, but to everyone in their social circle. She'd intercepted gifts, blocked calls, and spread lies about my character and capabilities, and Claire had let her. That was the hardest part to reconcile. My daughter, who knew me better than anyone, had allowed herself to be poisoned against me. She'd accepted Belinda's narrative without question, perhaps finding it easier to believe I'd grown distant than to consider her mother-in-law might be deliberately driving a wedge between us. I was still in the garden when I heard a car pull into my driveway. Through the fence, I could see Claire's SUV. She sat behind the wheel for several long moments, not moving. When she finally emerged, her appearance shocked me. My always polished daughter looked disheveled, hair hastily pulled back, eyes swollen from crying, wearing jeans and an old sweater instead of her usual carefully coordinated outfits. She stood at my garden gate, clutching a large manila envelope. Our eyes met across the yard. Mom, she whispered, her voice carrying on the afternoon breeze. I straightened slowly, brushing dirt from my gardening gloves. I didn't move toward her, but I didn't turn away either. Claire pushed open the gate with trembling hands, took 2 steps forward, then stopped. I found these, she said, holding out the envelope. Cards you sent Emily, birthday gifts for me, notes you wrote that I never received. I nodded, but said nothing. Belinda intercepted them all, Claire continued, her voice breaking. For years, she told me you were pulling away because you felt inferior, that you resented our lifestyle. Removed my gardening gloves slowly. And you believed her? It wasn't a question, but Claire answered anyway, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she whispered. God help me, I did. We stood facing each other, the weight of that admission hanging between us. In her eyes, I saw genuine remorse, but also something else, the dawning recognition of how deeply she'd wounded me. Emily showed everyone your Mother's Day card, she said after a moment. Belinda claimed she'd mailed it, but Emily said that was impossible because she'd just made it the night before. That's when everything started unraveling. I nodded again, remembering Emily's account. I accused Belinda of lying, Claire continued. She got defensive, said I was being ungrateful after everything she'd done for me. Then Emily asked about Christmas presents from you, and I realized I hadn't seen one in years. I went looking and found. She gestured helplessly at the envelope. Everything, I supplied. Everything, she echoed, her voice barely audible. Mom, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if it can be fixed. If it can be fixed. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw not just the woman who had hurt me so deeply, but also the little girl I'd raised, the teenager who'd defended me fiercely, the young woman who'd once been so proud of her working-class roots. "I need to know why," I said finally. "Why did you believe her so easily?" Claire's face crumpled, but I needed this answer more than I needed to comfort her. Claire took a shuddering breath, my question hanging between us. Why had she believed Belinda so easily? "I wanted to fit in," she finally admitted, her voice small. "William's family has so much influence, so much power. At first I thought if I could just adapt to their world, everything would be easier. Then it became." She trailed off, looking down at her hands. "Became what?" "Addictive," she whispered. "The country club memberships, the charity galas, being invited to all the right parties. I started thinking maybe Belinda was right, that your way of living was limiting." Her words stung, but at least they were honest. "And what about your way of living, Claire?" I asked quietly. "Is it fulfilling? Are you happy?" She looked up, startled by the question. For a moment, she seemed about to deliver the automatic response. Of course she was happy, she had everything. But then her shoulders slumped. "No," she admitted. "I'm exhausted all the time. Every event is a test I might fail. Every conversation feels like I'm auditioning for acceptance." I nodded, not offering comfort yet. "And your values? The ones we talked about when you were growing up? Compassion, integrity, standing up for what's right?" Claire's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I've compromised all of them. I've watched Belinda treat service staff terribly and said nothing. I've heard her make awful comments about people's backgrounds and stayed silent." She wiped her face with her sleeve, something the polished Claire I'd seen lately would never do. "I've become someone I don't recognize." A bird chirped overhead. The garden around us peaceful despite the storm of emotions between us. I studied my daughter, seeing both the woman she'd become and the girl she'd been. "Why did you uninvite me to Mother's Day?" I asked, the question that had been burning inside me. Claire's face crumpled. "Belinda suggested a smaller gathering this year. When I mentioned you were coming, she made this comment about how you might feel uncomfortable at the country club. I should have defended you immediately, but instead I just went along with it." Her voice broke. "It was easier than standing up to her. I'm so ashamed." I let her words settle, neither accepting nor rejecting them yet. "Yesterday at brunch," she continued, "when Emily showed everyone your card, something clicked. I saw Belinda's face, this flash of panic before she claimed she'd mailed it. Then Emily got so upset, saying Belinda was lying because she'd just made the card. It was like dominoes falling. All these little inconsistencies over the years suddenly made sense." She held out the manila envelope again. "After everyone left, I went looking through Belinda's study. That's when I found this: birthday cards, Christmas presents, notes about your calls. She's been systematically cutting you out of our lives for years." I took the envelope this time, opening it to find exactly what she'd described. Cards I'd sent, presents still wrapped in my distinctive paper, even a handwritten log of my calls noted in Belinda's precise handwriting with diverted written. Beside each one, William was furious, Claire said. He confronted his mother. She tried to justify it, said she was protecting the family image, and that your working-class manners would embarrass us. That's when William told her to leave and never come back. I've never seen him stand up to her like that. I closed the envelope, processing everything. "And now I'm here," Claire said simply, "asking for forgiveness I don't deserve." Her humility was genuine, her remorse palpable. But forgiveness couldn't be rushed, not for a wound this deep. "I need time, Claire," I said finally. "I'm glad you discovered the truth, but it doesn't erase the fact that you chose Belinda's version of me over your own knowledge of who I am. That hurts more than I can express." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I needed to see you, to tell you I'm sorry." "I know," I said, my voice softening slightly, "and I'm listening." We stood in silence for a long moment, the afternoon sun warm on our shoulders. Then, hesitantly, Claire reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a tarnished silver thimble. "Do you remember this?" she asked. Of course I did. It had been my mother's, then mine. I'd used it to teach Claire to sew when money was tight and we made our own clothes. "You gave it to me before my wedding," she continued. "Said it represented all the women in our family who'd worked with their hands to build better lives. I stopped wearing it because Belinda said it looked quaint." Her voice wavered with shame. "I found it this morning while packing." "Packing?" I echoed. Claire nodded. "William and I are looking for an apartment. We're selling the house. It's too big, too empty. Too cold. We want a real home, not a showpiece. I felt a small crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. It wasn't just words, Claire was making actual changes. Emily wants to know if she can come stay with you this weekend, she added. She missed you. We all did, even when I was too blind to admit it. The crack widened. I thought of my granddaughter, caught in the middle of this mess, yet brave enough to stand up for what was right when the adults around her failed. Emily is always welcome here, I said. As for you and William. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Let's take this slowly, one step at a time. Claire nodded, relief washing over her face. She hadn't expected immediate forgiveness, but she'd feared complete rejection. Can I bring Emily by on Friday after school? She asked. I'll just drop her off. I won't stay if you're not ready. I considered this, then shook my head. No, I said firmly. You'll come in, we'll have coffee, we'll talk, really talk. It won't be easy, but it's necessary. She nodded, understanding the boundary and the invitation it contained. As she turned to leave, I made a decision. Claire, I called after her. She looked back, hope and uncertainty mingled in her expression. I held up the envelope of intercepted gifts. Take these home, open them with Emily. They were meant for both of you. She took the package, her hands steadier now. Thank you, Mom. And Claire? Yes? Bring the thimble on Friday. We might need to remind ourselves who we really are. After she drove away, I returned to my gardening, hands working the soil as I processed everything. The hurt wasn't gone, but something new had taken root alongside it. Not quite forgiveness yet, but it's beginning. 1 year later, we celebrated Mother's Day in my backyard. Emily had helped me plant new rose bushes, their blooms just beginning to open. Claire and William arrived with homemade dishes, not catered trays. We ate at my old wooden table, mismatched plates and simple glassware somehow more beautiful than any formal setting. Claire wore the silver thimble on a chain around her neck, a constant reminder of where she came from and who she chose to be. William, more relaxed than I'd ever seen him, talked earnestly about his new position at a community legal clinic. Belinda was not mentioned. She had made attempts to reconnect, of course, but Claire and William maintained their boundaries. Some bridges once burned should stay ashes. As we shared dessert, Claire's slightly lopsided but delicious apple pie, I looked around at my family. Not perfect, but real. Not without scars, but healing. Emily caught my eye across the table and smiled. Best Mother's Day ever, right, Grandma? I reached for Claire's hand, feeling her squeeze mine in return. Yes, I said softly. The very best. Best.